Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to IndiMarin's introduction to phone banking. We're going to begin in just a minute. I'm Betty Von Glahn, and I co-lead our phone banks along with Lori Friedman. And we're joined this afternoon by Andy Triolo. She's a member of our steering committee with us and leads our texting team. But today she's going to run the slides for us. So, Andy, I think we can go ahead and begin the slides. It's just really nice to see you all here. Lori attended a meeting today, and I won't be able to quote the study exactly, but the gist of it is that like 80% of people decide by September who they're going to vote for. So we don't want to wait until September to start making these calls. So we've been making them for months, and we're just really glad you're here to join us and continue through the summer all the way up through November 5th. Okay, next slide, please. So we have a few meeting tips. Just from what I'm seeing, it looks like everybody is on camera. That's great. We would love it if you're not to turn on your video. It just is more personal, and we like to see who's here. You're muted right now, but questions may come up during the presentation, so just put them in the chat, and we will get to those when we get to the Q&A period. And just a reminder, this is an introduction to phone banking. It's just an overview. The actual training for how to use the dialer takes place at the phone banks. But I'm going to tell you about, sort of the A to Z of our phone banks, and we will share a demonstration call so that you'll see how the dialer works. But the actual training will happen at the phone bank. So sit back and relax so you don't have to take notes, and we'll just get it underway. So next slide, please. Why phone bank? Well, there are three reasons that we think are significant. First of all, it's interactive. We want to interact with voters. So it's a two-way conversation. You're not sending a postcard out in the mail and not hearing from the voter, hearing their response or hearing what their concerns are. We really view our calls as educating voters. We're providing them with the information that they need to exercise their right to vote, whether it's providing information about a candidate or about polling locations, the dates for early in-person voting. All those things they vary from state to state. They can vary in counties. So we are really doing a public service when we call people. It's also an efficient way to reach to reach voters, especially rural voters, because you can reach more rural voters in an hour than you ever could knocking on doors. It's very impactful. Canvassing, going door to door is actually the most impactful form of voter outreach, but phone banking is second. We can reach many voters and we have those conversations with them. It also can boost voter turnout in almost every script that we've used. The end of it will often include the phone banker asking the voter to contact their friends and family and urge them to support our candidate or the issue that we're calling about. And Activate America did a study on that and found that just them asking friends and family to vote can boost turnout by 2 to 10%. And we all know how close these elections are. So 2 to 10% can make the difference between winning and losing. When you're phone banking, you will get wrong numbers. You will get some people who hang up. But one of the most important things about it, in addition to the conversations, is that you're cleaning the voter list so that in those final days before the election, when we need to turn out voters, we're not calling the wrong number anymore. We have a lean, clean list of voters who we can turn out and answer any remaining questions they have about their polling location or whatever. Okay, next slide, please. Still, People are reluctant to phone bank. So we thought we would take 4 of the most common fears we hear about and tell you what we feel really is the reality. Many people think that voters across the board just resent the interruption of a phone call, but we haven't found that to be true. Many people really welcome the information we're providing. And many people are more isolated than some of us can imagine, whether they're isolated from information or isolated from people. You know, we'll speak sometimes with elderly people who will talk for quite a bit of time, and they really do welcome somebody calling and talking to them about something substantive where it's a conversation. We're not asking for money. Secondly, people fear it'll be a waste of time, that nobody ever answers their phones. Well, right now we have a fantastic dialer that only connects us when a human answers. And people do answer their phones. And as I said, people are willing to talk. And these elections are very close. The margins are small. Every phone call that we make and connect to a voter matters. Many people are afraid they're going to end up talking with a MAGA voter and that we are asking them to persuade MAGA voters, and that's really not the case. The partners who we work with, and currently that would be the California Democratic Party and Activate America, they provide us with the dialer and they provide us with the lists of the voters. And those voters are Democrats and independents. And because we're calling to identify our supporters and to inform them about voting information, or to turn them out, we're not going to waste our time on talking with somebody who says they are supporting Trump or they're supporting, the Republican Senate candidate. We'll just politely say, "Oh, I'm sorry to have bothered you. Thank you very much," and move on. We're not trying to persuade people. That's not a good use of our time. Our time is best spent calling the next Democrat, the next independent, and urging them to get out and vote. And the final biggest fear of all is just people are uncomfortable talking to strangers. And the only thing we can say to that is it'll be more uncomfortable if Donald Trump wins again. We've got to get out of our comfort zone. We've got to just make calls. And as you'll see when we get to the end of the program, they're a lot more interesting and fun than you might imagine. Okay, next slide, please. So you've got a lot of choices. Why would you phone bank with us? Well, first of all, we value our volunteers. We really value the time that you give to us, and we make sure your time is well spent by choosing the campaigns that we work for very carefully. And I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. The other thing that we have that is a gem is a team of very patient, friendly mentors who are at every phone bank. They're there to train you on the dialer, to familiarize you with the script. And then once you begin calling, they are still there waiting to support you by answering any questions that you will have. These phone banks, as you probably know, are all virtual. We're on Zoom for them, just like we are now. And when you're making your calls, we'll have you leave computer audio. We'll show you how to do that. So you're making your calls in private. We're not listening to you. But you can rejoin computer audio and ask a question of your mentor at any time. They'll be right there. We also focus at IndiMarin on building community among our volunteers. It's just such an important asset, and it keeps people with very positive energy about the phone banking, postcarding, canvassing, or texting experience. And in phone banking, we do that in our debriefs. We're going to show you a clip of people speaking at some of our debriefs later, but it really is a friendly environment with like-minded people. And when you're sharing out calls, you invariably build relationships, you laugh together, you commiserate, you may offer a tip of something that worked well for you with a voter. So those are all really important aspects that are outside of the actual conversation with the voter. And I'd also just quickly add that IndiMarin has a lot of quality experiences that we offer to people who are on our team. And one of them coming up June 24th is an event that happens monthly, but my co-lead, Lori, is also our lead strategist. And monthly, she presents an overview of the electoral landscape around the country. And it is such an informative session that I don't know how many, we get like 150 people who sign up, and people come back month after month because it really is a landscape that changes, and she keeps her finger on the pulse of it all. Okay, next slide, please. So how we choose our campaigns? Well, we use 3 criteria. The first one is, how close is the race? If the Democrat or the Republican is way ahead, our time won't be well spent there. We want to call in the most competitive races where we have a very solid chance of winning. Secondly, how much does the candidate need volunteers? And I've used this example before, but it's recent and it may ring true for you that, George Santos became somewhat infamous. And when he resigned from his congressional seat and they were holding a special election, grassroots groups from around the country all came to the aid of the Democrat running, and it was time well spent for them. And he had sort of an embarrassment of riches with the number of people who wanted to call there. And we looked at that and we thought, we were so grateful that he had such a turnout. But if we had brought our volunteers there, it was beyond what was needed at that point. They had so many. So we turned our eye toward a congressional race in California's Central Valley for Rudy Salas, who really needed a final push to get onto the ballot for representing California's 22nd district. And we did, we made the calls, and Rudy made it. So he is running now. He's the Democrat running for that district. And the final question is, again, keeping our volunteers' experience front and center. Is the dialer easy and efficient? We want it to be a pleasant experience for you. And the dialer we're using now is both. Okay, next slide. So as I said, we are calling for Rudy Salas. He is running in California's 22nd district in our Central Valley. He's running for Congress. And in that race, we are calling all registered Democrats in that district. And we're also calling mid to high propensity independents. In California, we call them no party preference or NPP voters. And mid to high propensity just means they usually vote or they always vote. Whereas that other pool of all Democrats, you're going to get some people who are registered, but they don't regularly vote. So those are 2 different populations, and we will be calling both of them for Rudy Salas. Our second candidate, and I should point out, you get a choice at every phone bank you come to if you want to call for Rudy or if you want to call for Ruben. And if you want to switch next time, you'll switch. But we offer both of these. And currently we're calling for Ruben Gallego, who's running for the Senate in Arizona. Kirsten Sinema declined to run. Their primary is coming up July 30th, and it is likely as a be Carrie Lake.
Looks like Betty's frozen. Let's give it a minute here. All right, I'm going to take over for her, I think, is what I'm going to do here. Yeah, she's had some internet issues today. So I'm Lori, I'm the other co-lead, and I'll just continue until she can hopefully hop back on this call. Ruben is the second candidate in Arizona voters have to sign up to vote early. Here in California, we all get our early ballots in the mail automatically, but this is a really important campaign to be working on in Arizona to get our voters to sign up to early vote. And there, in this particular campaign, we'll be talking just to infrequent, or what they call low propensity Democratic voters. Next slide, please. All right, so a little bit about Rudy. We like to have our phone bankers get to know our candidates. He's really just he's a wonderful candidate. He was born and raised in our Central Valley. In fact, he was the first Latino to ever hold local office on the Bakersfield City Council. And after that, he has served 5 terms in the California Assembly, and he's done so much for this area. He's well known in some of his new congressional district, but some people whom he didn't represent in the assembly are still getting to know him. He led a successful fight for the overtime pay for farm workers that happened a few years ago. He was part of the group that lowered insulin prices here in California and voted to raise the minimum wage. He came and talked to our phone bank a few weeks ago, and we're just going to show a little clip of that right now so you can hear him talking to you. I think we need to share sound. Just a minute while Andy gets the sound going.
You know, Lori, we could come back to this, maybe.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I think maybe.
I'll turn it back over to you now.
Okay, I think I'll have to share my screen, and then let me just get to that slide. One second. We're sorry, folks. There've been a couple of tech issues. Okay. And just let me know if my internet goes out again. I believe I will be able to play that for you. Okay, let's try.
Appreciate everything that you guys are doing, and thank you for having me. And sorry I'm a couple minutes late, but just I think you guys know how important this race is, how important it is for our country and for democracy. This is one of the most democratic seats in the entire country that we need to flip from red to blue. It's a Biden plus 13 seat. But more than anything, I just wanted to thank you guys. I just truly appreciate it. When you look at these races that come down to just a handful of votes, everything that you're doing, reaching out to voters, talking to people directly, through the phone banking, and I tell people door knocking and postcards, like all of that makes a difference. And when you look at just needing just a couple of votes in every precinct and in every neighborhood, like this is what it's going to come down to. There's a lot of people I've been talking to over the last couple of weeks where, we hope to win all 3, the White House, the Senate, and the House. But, just in case, we need to make sure we win the House, because that's kind of our line in the sand for American democracy with the way we know it. And so more than anything, I just truly appreciate each and every one of you taking time out of your busy weekend to help make a difference, and know that we're doing everything that we can on the ground as well to make sure that we get this over the finish line, and that we're doing everything for our families. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
A great one is what issues do you think we're going to hear about most from voters as we're talking to them on the phones?
Yeah, so I always tell people when I've been talking to voters, it's always about something local. they always like to talk about local things, but really it's really about costs. And so I tell people, and I just talk about our records, mine and David Valadeo's. So for instance, like, medical costs, for instance, like we have one of the largest rates of diabetes in this district than anywhere in the country. And so I talk about how when I was in the state legislature, I voted to lower the price of medicines and medications. And when David Valadeo had a chance to do that, he voted against capping the price of insulin at $35. I've been trying to make medicine more affordable. David actually voted to increase healthcare premiums, right? He's voted against Meals on Wheels for seniors. He's voted against veterans benefits. And then I just compare and contrast that with my record of actually trying to actually delivering for the community. And so we brought in millions of dollars to do things like a welding program to make sure people have the skills to get good paying jobs. We're doubling the amount of nursing graduates for the next decade with the amount of funding that I was able to bring in. And so what we do is we talk a lot about making life a little bit easier and not making life harder. And so I've been voting and doing things here on the ground to make life easier, more affordable for our families. And David continues to keep voting against us. He voted to raise the taxes on every homeowner in California, which is something I don't think we should be doing, especially at this moment in time.
Okay, so, every time I listen to that one with Rudy, I am always so struck by his sincerity. And then when you look at what he accomplished in the state assembly, I just feel like he's an outstanding candidate. And the second person we're calling for is Ruben Gallego. Ruben has had a lifetime of public service, really. He served 2 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan in the Marines, went on to serve 2 terms in the Arizona State Legislature. And then now he's in his 4th term representing Arizona's 3rd district in the U.S. House of Representatives. But when you watch this clip about Ruben, I think you really see he was actually also in service to his mother. I mean, helping her raise his siblings. And he just seems to me to be a person of such commitment to people. So let's watch this one.
Growing up poor, the only thing I really had was the American dream, an opportunity. It's the one thing that we give every American, no matter where they are born in life. It was actually something to believe in and to fight for.
The odds that a single immigrant mom with a Latino boy, statistically, I was never supposed to end up even in college. I slept on a floor and a couch and a roll-on mat. Hearing her cry like every night, being stressed out about how she was going to raise like 4 kids on a secretary's salary, with an absent father.
Fue una experiencia muy dura.
Having to step up and be a father figure to my 3 sisters and skipping my teenage years influenced me a lot. When you're poor, you really need a belief and a hope in a better future.
Hijo, Rita, you want to make you one?
And what helps to do that is when you have other people believe with you. My family, who didn't laugh at me when I told them I'm going to Harvard. Had teachers, did everything they could to make sure that it was possible. I had a government that believed in kids like me. I really did feel that I owed the country something, and we got sent to Iraq.
Losing all my friends, consistently being shot at, and people trying to blow you up all the time.
You never really fully come back from a war. You're not the same person.
Fighting through PTSD. There were some very low moments in my life, but I still didn't give up hope and push forward.
I found a new way to keep serving. Hey, you're the first group of people that are hearing this, besides my family. I will be challenging Kyrsten Sinema for the United States Senate, and I need all of your support. Most families feel that they are 1 or 2 paychecks away from going under. That is not the way that we should be living in this country. the rich and the powerful. They don't need more advocates. It's the people that are still trying to decide between groceries and utilities that needs a fighter for them. There is no lobbyist for working families. We could argue different ways about how to do it, but at the core, if you're more likely to be meeting with the powerful than the powerless, you're doing this job incorrectly. I'm sorry that politicians have let you down, but I'm going to change that. I'm Ruben Gallego. I'm running to be the Senator of Arizona.
Because you deserve somebody fighting for you and fighting with you every day to make sure you have the same chance al sueño americano.
You know, again, a very real person. His sincerity, his drive, his compassion, they all come through there. And we're really proud to be making calls for him.
Growing up,
I'm going to just skip back to here. We've got one more thing coming up, and that will be that in the next several weeks, we're going to start calling for President Biden and Vice President Harris. And we'll also be calling into other swing states in the Senate. So we'll call for the candidates who need the most support at that time. And right now it is for Ruben Gallego, and we will stick with him until, the Democratic National Committee urges us to go to another race where they need more support. So that's how we will make that decision. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lori, who's going to really talk to you more about the nuts and bolts of our phone banking.
Okay, thank you, Betty. All right, signing up for a phone bank is simple. Our website is www.indivisiblemin.org. You can get to it with a simple Google search. When you get to it, this is our homepage, and you'll be looking at a couple of different tabs here. You can go to the calendar and sign up for our phone banks there, late Tuesdays, or Saturday mornings, or Sunday afternoons if you're here in Marin County. But the other tab that's important is the Take Action tab. And if you click on that, it's going to give you a drop-down menu, and one of the options will be phone voters. And on that page, we'll have all the information that you need about where we're calling to, events that we have coming up, and all the links that you need. So very simple to do. Next slide. When you sign up for a phone bank, you'll sign up on Mobilize, you'll submit your RSVP, you will get an email back that will have the Zoom link. It's just like any other Mobilize event. And when you click on that Zoom link, the first time to come into a phone bank, you're going to need to register. And so once you do that and you click register, then you'll get into the phone bank. And that's just a security and sort of administrative step that we need to take to come in. Next slide, please. Once you're in, it'll be a Zoom call, just like this one. We'll spend the first 15 or 20 minutes going through our current campaigns. Right now, that is Rudy Salas and Ruben Gallego. At that point, we'll break out into rooms, separate Zoom rooms that will be based on number one, which campaign you're calling for, and number two, your level of experience. So you will be in with either people that are brand new that have never phone banked before. We'll have another group of people who have phone banked before but need refreshers or haven't phone banked with us and want to get used to our system. Or if you've phone banked with us many times before, you'll go into a room with all experienced people and be able to work immediately. But each one of those rooms will have a separate mentor that will be available for you and your group to answer questions. The level of training will depend on the level of experience in that group. You can make these calls through a computer, a laptop, an iPhone, or a tablet on any browser, so any device will work. You actually make the calls, though, through a platform. And so the platform will generate a number that will come up on the voter's phone, and it will never be your number. It will never be your email. It is an artificially created number that will look like a local number. So total privacy. You never have to worry about that. And then you'll start making conversations. The dialer works by the number of people that are using it at a time. So it will go faster and go through a list quicker if more people are working. some of those days you'll be the person that gets a lot of phone calls. It's not unusual to talk to half a dozen to a dozen people in a phone bank. Some days you may not get as many, but every time you're on the dialer working, you're not just yourself. You're working with not only our phone bank, but everybody else across the country that's phoning for that candidate on that dialer at that time. So you are generating volume, you are generating speed just by being there. You're really part of a huge collective effort each time you're on one of our phone banks. At the end of the phone bank, about 15 minutes before the advertised end of the time, we go back to the main room and we have a debrief. And that's where we share our calls, learn from each other, and get that feedback on what's worked and what hasn't worked for all of us. And it's just a very important part of building our community. Some of our phone bankers have been with us for years. Some of us are brand new, but it's a very strong and very supportive community. Next slide, please. All right, we're going to demonstrate now a call. These are two of our phone bank mentors or trainers, and it's a mock call, but it's very similar to what you'll experience when you call voters.
Hello.
Hello, is this Susan?
This is Susan.
Hi, Susan. My name is Jane, and I'm a volunteer with the California Democratic Party. I'm talking with voters today about our Democratic endorsed candidate for Congress, Rudy Salas. I would love to know if there is a particular vote for.
Well, I mean, here in the Central Valley, I mean, I think healthcare is, the most important to me, but of course, the economy and housing prices are as well. But healthcare is up there.
Yes, okay. Well, Rudy has tirelessly fought to make healthcare more affordable and accessible. He voted to make insulin more affordable. He's managed to secure funding to create the Valley Fever Institute and also help save the Kern Medical Center. Rudy doubled the funding to our local college, which helped them expand their nursing program. So healthcare is extremely important to Rudy too, and he's really done a lot in that regard. So could we count on your support to vote for Rudy Salas for Congress?
Well, I mean, I'll certainly think about it. I just, these days, I really am wondering how much my vote matters. There's so much division, and it just doesn't seem like Congress is getting anything done. So I just, and there's so much money that goes into politics. It makes me wonder, if we can really trust the candidates.
Yes, I understand. And I think so many voters feel that way, that it's a little overwhelming and that your vote might not count. But actually, every vote can be so important. Rudy Salas lost the last election only by about 3,000 votes.
Oh, wow.
And for the most part, that was because not enough registered Democratic voters voted for the election. If they had voted, then he would have won, and it would really make a difference. Let me tell you, if you have just a few minutes, just a little bit more about Rudy.
Okay. I've got to get dinner on the table and I've got going on, but if you just can do it fairly quickly, I'd love to hear a little more about him.
I promise I'll be quick. So he grew up in Bakersfield, so he knows this area. His dad worked in the fields and he worked with him and also in construction. He was 10 years in the California Assembly. And while he was there, he fought to lower costs and improve working conditions. He's running for Congress to continue delivering for working families. That's why he is the only candidate who is endorsed by the United Farm Workers, by U.S. Senator Alex Padilla, and the California Democratic Party. So what are you thinking now?
I do think I could support him, but I don't know. I mean, was there an election recently, and I don't know when the next one is. I don't think I voted in it. I mean, I remember getting a ballot, but I don't know. It's in a pile somewhere here. I don't think I got it into the mail.
Well, you're right. Every California voter does get a mail-in ballot.
Okay.
And
good.
so but sometimes they can get lost in the piles of other mail that you get. So that was in June for the primary. And the regular election, the general election, is in November. So you will get a ballot in November.
Okay. So,
And
so
what I would suggest is that you fill it out right away so that it doesn't get lost, and
Yeah.
mail it back. If you like, I could text you the candidate's website so that you could look into more issues that are important to you and see what Rudy Salas's position is on them. Would that be helpful?
Oh, I think it would. I just, I've heard of him a bit, but I don't know that much about him. So
Okay.
sure, yeah, that would be great.
All right. Well, let me just check to make sure then that I have your right cell phone number. 202-555-1234. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, that's my cell.
Okay, very good. Then I will send you a text. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. And if you decide that you're going to vote for Rudy Salas, I hope you will encourage friends and family members to vote for him as well.
Oh, definitely. I feel bad that, he could have won the last election.
Right. I know. I know.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks again, Susan.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, so that's a typical conversation, and what you saw on the screen was the dialer itself. So as you're talking to voters, you'll have the information right in front of you for any issue, and then you'll be marking that voter as a certain type of voter, a supporter, someone who's undecided. That information goes back to the campaign. If they haven't committed to voting for him, they'll get another phone call at a later point in the year. So we'd love for you to sign up. Actually, we need to go back to the slides there.
Oh, I'm
Betty. Yeah, that's okay. I know you're the jack of all trades right now.
Yeah, you're right.
So these we've got our phone banks on Saturday, 9:30 to 11:30, and we are going to drop those links into the chat here in a bit. Tuesdays, our Tuesday phone banks from 4 to 6 start a week from tomorrow. We'll be meeting every day. It's the same exact phone bank, the same exact mentors, just adding that additional day. If you like and are interested in all the details of the election, the different races, sort of a more wonkier kind of presentation, I'm inviting you to come a week from tonight to our State of Play. This is a weekly electoral update series that we have at 5:30. And then if you're local and you live here in Marin County or near here, we have in-person now phone banking every other Sunday. Again, this Sunday is one from 3 to 5. It's in San Rafael. Next slide. Okay, so thanks for coming tonight. We're gonna I'm gonna show one more video about our debrief that will show you the sort of the community effect and just the conversations that we have amongst ourselves after phone banks, where we share and learn from each other. But please do tell your friends about this call. We'll repeat it again in the middle of July and get a new group up and starting then. We do need more volunteers. We are really trying to scale up to our maximum, not in October or September, but in the summertime. That's when we're going to have the biggest impact. Like Betty said earlier, most voters do decide if they're going to vote and who they're going to vote for in December. By September. After that, it's really hard to move people. So this is the best time to be having those conversations. And again, go to our website and all of the information is there. Next slide. All right, so let's hear from our volunteers and you'll see really firsthand what a phone bank debrief is like.
I saw it was a younger voter, because after I introduced myself, I apologized for calling them on a Saturday morning. And they got a kick out of that.
Oh,
I said, the last thing you want now is a political call on a Saturday morning. I know, but if you could just give me a few minutes to talk to you about Rudy Salas, I'd really appreciate it.
that's
That's good.
And it seemed to work with some of the younger voters that I got.
Oh, thanks for
That's
that.
really good. And again, a great example of making it your own. Be conversational, just be real with people.
Great. He said, "You're really good at this." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Because I've never phone banked before this. And I don't know what I'm doing, honestly." He's like, no, you're doing great. So talk about reverse psychology here.
perspective I wanted to share because I had one of those calling days where I just got hang up after hang up, and then wrong number, and then I'm not interested in politics, and I got a couple of good ones, but no rich conversations. And there were other people that had the same, but because I was calling, I was generating calls for the other callers. So it's through my generating volume. That's what keeps the dialer going. And that's why, say, Lori, who had an awesome day, and Barbara got that awesome, I helped enable that. So you just have to keep calling so that if it's somebody else, if the force is with somebody else that particular day, you're getting the calls to them and you're just keeping the dialer running. It's just a perspective I wanted to share.
It is exciting, when you talk to someone that just kind of has a blank, I identify who I am and that I'm calling about Rudy Salas. And so, yeah, with a couple of clients, a couple of voters, I went through some of his priorities, and it was just so wonderful, hearing at the end of discussing those priorities. Well, actually, she was mainly listening and asked if she had any other questions. And she said, I think that my values align with him, and yes, I will be voting for Rudy. So that is exciting.
Well, lots of time. For those of you who don't know, for years, Lori was very reluctant to phone bank because she just didn't think it was for her. And then as things became desperate for us, I can't remember if it was the midterms, and we were pushing, going, we need more phone bankers. And Lori stepped up, and boy, you've become just...
It's my favorite thing to do now. And I'm not great at it. I'm on you guys. I have a long ways to go. I learn every single time a lot from these debriefs, but it's definitely a learning curve, and it's something you just get better and better at as
Okay, we'll stop it there. You've already heard a bit from Rudy Salas, but we just wanted you to hear from our phone bankers. So, Lori, we've got one more there. So we're going to
stop for our debrief. I mean, for our questions and answers. And I do have one here. I'm looking at the chat because I had asked people to put them in the chat, and I think I've answered them. A question from Elizabeth in Seattle. Would I provide a benefit to the California and Arizona races? Absolutely. The majority, all of us work outside in IndiMarin. We all work outside because we don't need to work in our own district. So we have volunteers across the country that postcard, text, phone bank. So geography doesn't matter anymore. When you live and any of you that do live in a place like Pennsylvania or Arizona or the Central Valley, you are well used to being the center of the political world and well used to people coming in from outside. So it's not an issue anymore that it was in the past. So we welcome you. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time before you feel comfortable for all of us, because most of us will be calling into areas that are not where we live, and it does take a little bit of time to get used to that. But it happens. It happens very quickly, and there's so much rich materials that we give you to answer the questions. And if they have a question that you don't know, it's perfectly fine to say, I'm not as familiar with that, but I will take that question back to the campaign. There's a part in the script as you're moving through it with a voter that allows you to put notes in. So if that voter has a particular concern, if they need something from the campaign, you are able to enter that into the platform under that voter's name. That material goes back to the campaign. We actually have, if you reach a Spanish speaker, which often people ask about, the CADEM organizer for that district is bilingual, and he actually personally calls everybody that speaks Spanish that we reach on a phone bank that we're unable to communicate with. It doesn't happen that often, but in the Central Valley, it's a very heavily Latino area that we sometimes do see that. So
there's a question in the chat. What are good techniques to get our friends to phone bank? That's the $64,000 question.
Yeah. We'd hire you in a heartbeat if you could figure that out. I don't know, Betty, you can talk to that. I think it just depends on the relationship that you have with that friend or family and how, you know, how open you are to talking about politics. But
yeah, exactly. And I mean, sometimes something as basic as the buddy system, just say we'll go do it together. We also offer one-to-one mentoring for people who either have come to a phone bank and struggled with something. We'll meet with them one-on-one for a Zoom and have that, you know, go over it together. That's something we could do with you and your friend. Meet with you together. If you feel they are particularly reluctant, we would just meet with you, show you how the dialer works. So I think lowering the bar in terms of people's fears, which is why we begin with that chart where we talk about the things that, you know, people understandably have some hesitations, but we just want you to know once you get going with it, it's really pretty great.
yeah, and I think it illustrates what the single most effective way to get voters to vote for us is what we call relational organizing. And that's when the people you talk to their friends, and when we talk to our friends, and when we convince people to volunteer. And that it can't be captured, it can't be, you know, we can't numerically know what's going on, but that's the single most effective way to get someone to action, is if it comes from somebody you know. So every time you have a conversation like Suzanne had with that voter and convince somebody to vote for Rudy, that friend, that person is going to go out and tell 3 or 4 of their friends, you know what, I've decided I'm rooting for Rudy Salas. I had a great conversation with someone on the phone. So you're not just reaching that one person, it's sprinkling out. Same thing with texting, and same thing with you guys. I mean, we're here tonight, and maybe a couple of you will get some of your friends to come. And that's really the power behind organizing, is that connection.